Okay, so I was just watching Giorgio Tsoukalos, and he was talking about it's been 18 years since he's been doing this and that. Well, 15 years or so ago, I started reporting on the mud fossils. Up until then, there was no evidence, basically. They knew these things were here, but that was about it. Now, it proves this is biology. I have shown this over and over and over again. And this is 15 years it's been going on. Now, I see a new interest in this broadly. And there's a lot of mistakes being made, yes. I think I have narrowed in on a very, very good understanding of what all this stuff means. And I can explain every detail of it to somebody that is interested and can get it out to the public. Now I need a spokesman type person or somebody. I just can't seem to break through. So that's what I'm hoping for. Okay, Giorgio Tsoukalos is over there in Egypt looking into the Great Pyramid, and they had found in 2017, apparently they found this giant void that is inside the Great Pyramid. Let me show you what it looks like. You know, before we look at the chamber, I want you to see something. These blocks here, I feel, were geopolymers, or they were actually cut from slabs of tendons and then fit in here like they did the walls down in Peru, Bolivia, and all of those area. But the rest is block. Now, was it an original block that was from a creature's body like this? A dragon scale? There's all kinds of scales in here. This, you see all that little lines in there? This is not just one piece of stuff. There's a whole ton of little lines in here, and I'm sure they have blocks. Now, there's also a biology in here. All right, right there, there's blood, and there's an entry of blood, and it comes out right down here. That's another area where there's blood. And that is, I believe, was a dragon scale from, you know, a fairly moderate sized dragon, nothing huge. And that right there is the tab that held it in position, and it could slide back and forth, and it has this Slurpee on here, this gooey stuff right there. So it could slide back and forth. This was alive at one time. This was on a living creature, and it sure looks like a damn pyramid to me. So let's see what they show for this chamber. You see what at some point somebody came through here and made this chamber in there, and they know that, they've known about it forever, but this is brand new. They never realized there. And there doesn't seem to be any way to get to it. It's just there. Now, how would it be just there? Well, if it was biological, it would have been built in. This, I believe, is this. And it would probably go up inside somewhere, but eventually it would come out down here. No, they don't go under, so I don't know. But this was I don't know, they do some kind of CAT scan type of thing. These were known about, but well, how did that happen? You know, it's 111 feet. That's a pretty good sized chamber. I don't know how you get to it. Now, these are tendon blocks. This is not outside the realm of possibilities that they could have sculpted some tendon down, or it was just from something that was similar to a dragon scale that was laying in the desert there. I don't know. I don't know what to think. But it does appear to me that they were worked at one point. But I believe that chamber going down inside was following a blood supply, and that is blood right there. As a matter of fact, I'll show it in a microscope, and I'll show you this side too. All right, here it is in the microscope. What we're going to be looking at is right there, which is where the red blood is. And I think they followed that little passageway right there, down inside, right through that passageway, which is an artery. Everything has to be fed with blood, and this thing was alive at one time. And you see all these little stripy, blocky things? There's no saying that this thing couldn't have been something very similar to the pyramids. It's got all the little stripes and slits and all that stuff. And here's the top right here. Here's the very top of the pyramid, of this. And you see how it's blocky looking? That's not a whole big difference. That's not a whole big difference to what we're seeing in the pyramid. And this is the very tippy top. Hold on. Let me turn on the light so you can see where I'm looking. I was just looking right there at the very tip top. And they got layers all around. Very, very similar to the pyramid. All right, so I showed you here, and I say they went down inside. And this is another place where there's blood right here. Now, where that went to, I don't know. But you can see all these little stripes. You see? Now, we're going to put a little water right on that blood. You see the stripes come out nice. When you put water on things, they show up a lot better. That's not a whole big difference on the pyramids, my friends. Now there's that hole right there, is where blood either came down or came up, one or the other. Let's take a seat, look at it in the microscope. And again, that's underneath the scale. And this would have had to slide back and forth on something. And that's where this slurpy stuff is. You see this gooey stuff right there? It's almost like a blob of, jellyish stuff. See it? All right, so let's take a look in the microscope at that blood. Okay, this is where the vein and artery left the scale and went down to wherever it went to. This is the red blood. You see it? You see the little red blood and the little holes and so forth. This is where the black blood was, which was the vein. Right here. And there's some gooey stuff that's covering up. But the red blood ran down through the vein right there, through the artery, I'm sorry. And this is just like fascia that's covering up, but that's where the artery was. You see it? And the artery's nice and round. This is just a gash, but that's what transfers the fluids from one body part to the next, which this scale had to transfer these, blood comes in, it goes out. That's all I can tell you.